Hello, I'm Lilian.
Hi, I'm Benita,
and this is the Girl to Woman podcast.
Yay! Lilian, we have someone special today.
Y'all. I'm so excited. I'm actually super, super excited.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we're supposed to have you in for like another episode. Then I went to your Instagram. I was looking. I just saw 11-year anniversary. I said, wow, we need her here. We need this. I was like, quickly comment. I was like, no, we're gonna change that topic. We need her here because there is just so much wisdom that you can share, and we're glad you're here today.
Yes,
welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you. I feel welcome. Thank you.
So yeah, we're just gonna be taking it. Let's start from the beginning. Like 11 years. You're a young woman. How are you married for 11 years? What is that story?
I know. So I got married at 22.
Okay.
Yes. In fact, my husband jokes that I'm a child bride. Yeah. So what had happened was, I finished school at 20, did my NYSC 21, then went for my master's. And so as I was finishing my master's was when I then, got married. So at the time, actually, growing up, how as a lady, you say, oh, you get married at 24, have your children at 25, by the time you're 30, you're done. Yeah. So I also had, I was going to get married. In my head, I said I would get married at 24.
Okay.
24 was my age. That was the age that I had
What
put.
happened then?
Thank you. So my husband and I, when we started dating, right, one day he just calls me and he says, do you know that and this is so random, he said, next year, the Saturday of your parents' anniversary is actually a Saturday. Do you think that we should, get married on that day? Seeing that we will get married anyways, what are we waiting for? So and I was like, okay, first of all, why are you even looking at my
parents?
Why are you looking at the anniversary? I didn't even think about it. That's just my own parents.
Your own parents, not
my own
his.
parents, not
His.
So I checked, and August 6th was a Saturday, the next year, and I said, okay, no problem. Let's see.
How long had you been dating?
Yeah, for you to get to that point.
Yeah, so I think at the time maybe I'd only been dating 6 months. So
you guys just knew.
Maybe 5 months or 6 months. Yes,
yes.
So by the time we agreed. Maybe 3 months after, when I came home for Easter, we did our introduction. So I was almost 21 safe. I never got to 22. And then we then got married 3 months after the introduction. In August, I was 22. Wow. Trust me, at the time, some of my classmates then they thought I was pregnant.
Yes,
of course.
Yes,
I'm sure something had happened.
One of my guy friends called me, said, Rennie, how can you be? Why are you rushing down the aisle?
Even your parents, what did they say?
Were you not surprised?
So because my parents also got married very early. So my mom got married at 23, and my dad was 26, the same age with my. No, it was 25 going 26. My husband got married at 26. So my mom was fine. My dad, however, I've been bringing other guys prior, and my dad won't say anything. Anytime anybody comes, we'll go upstairs. But then when my husband used to come at the time, they used to have conversation. So I saw that my dad was coming. Yes, was. So when we told him that we wanted to get married and all that, he didn't have any fears. And for some reason, I don't know. I think because I'm the first child and first grandchild on both sides, I'd always felt like I was. In fact, that 22, I actually thought I was 30.
Oh, you always felt
I was feeling very mature and responsibility. Yeah. So such that right now, when some of my mentees come to me and say, "Oh, ma'am, I'm getting married," and I'm like, "Oh, how old are you?" And they're like 24. I'm like, "Are you not too young?"
Meanwhile, you got married.
And then they're like, "But ma, you actually." I'm like, "Oh, that's true. So basically, that's it. And I think that because I'm married to my best friend, and I feel like, if I had gotten married to somebody else, even if I had gotten married at 30,
if it wasn't the right person, that is true. Is it really an age thing or finding the one thing when you find that person?
I mean, during this 11th anniversary, someone from back then in school sent me a message and said she has a confession. I'm like, okay, what's a confession? She was like, she will not even lie that when we're getting married, because I was literally the first person to get married amongst my mates at the time, and she was like, I honestly thought that your marriage would not last because I was thinking you're just too young. What do you know about marriage and all that? And she was just saying how she then got married at 27, but then I think 4 years after, her marriage ended and all that. And then she just thought about it that it's really not even about the age. It's just
finding the right person.
And God helping you find the right person, because you might feel like you actually have the right person, but then years into the marriage, you then
Yes.
begin to have realize many things. Sometimes I catch myself and I'm like, God, thank you that I married the right person.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that, like how you don't really know until you enter. Like you not be seeing points in your marriage. You're like, thank God
this person. Who will accept me like this?
Like even just the way they care for you and the things that they do. Like for me, I think one of the biggest moments was when I had a child and then seeing how the person takes responsibility.
You don't look like someone that has a child.
Tell her, sweet words.
Like, give it to us.
No, like when I had a child, I think that's when I started to realize that, how many women are actually thinking about this? Because yes, we're all very excited to get married, but these fathers, like you need a husband to be a father. So that one I was like, God, thank you for just helping me on this. So it's very, very like interesting. Like when you sign that contract, you're just saying, okay, let's hope this works.
You know, we normally always say that if I not get married to this person,
it wouldn't have been anybody else.
Yes.
I agree. I completely agree. Yeah. And now you guys got married pretty early, and of course, a lot of people had their doubts. Now you're even blessed and lucky to have had one person openly tell you that.
Yeah, because the other people.
I actually thought that you guys would not. I'm sure there were lots of people that actually were thinking those same thoughts. But what would you say helped you guys, especially when you get knowing that you guys were pretty young when you got married? I'm sure you also there were some things that your husband did, because even now in our old age, there's some things that husband do just like, But what was I thinking? But like, how did you navigate that whole season, especially because you were young? You were younger actually.
Yeah, I was younger. He was also young, so I'll say he was 25 going 26 as well. And seeing that we actually finished school the same year, and also it wasn't like maybe he had finished school earlier and then was working and was kind of settled and wanted to get married. No, both of us were young. But I remember that, because I knew how young I was, I acknowledged that I was quite young, right? And then in then you then realize, okay, so what do I do now? So that, I don't, in quotes, regret it, or, how do I equip myself? And immediately I was like, God, it is you that has to help me in this place. You have to be that person at the center of this marriage. And then both of us, acknowledged that and told God that, God, all through the way, you would have to help us, because as it is clearly, we might not know what we are doing. And so being, vulnerable with one another and knowing that we are bringing God into the mix helped. One of the things that I told God was, God, there are certain things that I don't want, So again, my husband is that ethical person. So he reads a lot. I mean, in university, I think he read over 100. Was it over 100 or 200 books? Yes. And then inside it were marriage books. Even before he met me, he had read on marriage. He had watched. He had listened to tapes on marriage. So he knew the theory. But I saw that when we even got married and when we started dating, he would give me books. He would say, read this book on marriage, So we even read, things on temperament, things on love languages. So that, if I'm, my own love language, you're not getting it, like, you might feel like this person doesn't care for me. So those things, like I remember, like, all those things we did. So he was even kind of like, I would say, was
very intentional.
Very intentional
about making sure that this works.
Yes. Yeah. And then there are certain things as well that we research. So what are the causes of conflicts in marriage? So you have like sex, for example. You have
lack of communication.
You even have finance as well. Finance. So one thing I even told myself was, see, I don't really know about the sex part, but this finance, I will not allow money coming between my husband and I. And even till today, to the glory of God, like, if we have, we don't have. In fact, I remember when we just got married, my husband was then working at KPMG at the time, and then I wasn't working, and his salary was like 120,000 naira at the time. And what he did was he then had 2 ATM cards, where he had one and then I had one. So I could withdraw from that account, right? So we've been transparent. Like, see, anything that would cause any conflict, let's try to reduce as much as possible. And, and then oftentimes I realized also that when we pray together, we actually are better. So that has helped.
Yeah, that's great. The importance of unity in marriage cannot be overemphasized, and having a shared vision and a shared goal. Like, it's not a competition. Everybody's doing their bit to make sure the marriage works.
It's collaboration.
And just self-awareness as well, like you mentioned. I love how you said, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, just being honest, like, God,
help my life.
Because other people are looking at you and thinking, it's not going to work. So you could either choose to be afraid and then start to operate from that place of fear and start acting acting up, and then that's when issues start to happen.
Yes.
But when you are humble
Yes.
and you go and say, God, I have no clue what I'm doing.
Help me.
Help will come.
Yes.
Help will come. So that's really beautiful. That
I think she talked about finance, and I think it's a major challenge in marriages. If you are, if the wife is making more, for some men it's a problem. And then sometimes even if the husband is making more, it's also like, you just sit at home, take care of the children, let me take care of your needs and all of that, and so it can cause a lot of problem. And then the dynamics of even their relationship at home is going to be affected so much that the children will be affected too.
Very
so
true. Very
because
true.
now you said you didn't allow money become an issue in your marriage. What were those things that you intentionally did? Because obviously you also have a thriving business, and I'm sure that when you are thriving, so the whole family is thriving. So what were those things that you did that helped your relationship with your husband, whether there was money or not?
Yeah. So I think that from the onset, I was going, like, for me, was having a content mindset. So content, just being content where you are, knowing that, you know what, this season would not last forever. Like, you, as children of God, our path continue to shine brighter and brighter. So that understanding, I knew that, okay, whatever it is that we are, wherever we are at right now, it will get better. So I remember growing up, right, every summer, my parents used to, we used to travel together for holidays, since I was probably like around 8 or 9, every single year. You never missed. Now, I got married.
Where is the
holiday? You are going already.
Yes.
It's already looking shaky.
My wedding is August 6th. Our anniversary is August 6th. So you can imagine that's already even summertime. And I remember I mentioned that that's my parents' anniversary as well. So we already had like this thing where we would have traveled for the anniversary. That's how we then enter into summer holiday and all that. Now, as soon as my wedding was ending, I got married on Saturday. Well, trial was on Thursday, wedding was on Saturday. We did Thanksgiving on Sunday. My mom, my dad, my siblings, who my adopted siblings, that is not blood. On Monday, they were already going out of the country. Yeah, they were going to go to like 3 countries.
Ooh.
Yes.
And where were you?
Honestly, your husband's house.
I was in my husband's house. In fact, no, where was the honeymoon? That honeymoon was even in one of these hotels in Lekki somewhere where we even found rats inside. I know. So he was like, I was just like, yes, I remember. In fact, one day my husband was clearing the wardrobe and then he saw the receipt, 15,000. He said, can you imagine this place that they had rats? They had rats. In fact. So imagine, so my parents, all of them, they are traveled. But do you know what? I was very happy. I was just happy. And so for me, that content had always been there, because I could have said, you know what you will do now. We need to find a way.
Yeah, this happens a lot. Like women, we want to continue like we are
lives. Yes, exactly. Now. So at least that one, so for the next, I would say 3 years, because we couldn't afford to travel on holiday, and I cannot go back to my father's house. In fact, like I had to go back to school to do like 2 or 3 things, and I was finishing my master's in the UK. My husband had to buy my ticket, but my father is not saying, "Excuse me, what's now your son?"
But you have not finished now, Daddy.
My father answered. So ideally, when I'm traveling, I think when I'm traveling to the UK at the time, I'm either going with maybe British Airways or Virgin Atlantic. My husband could not afford it. So the one that he could afford was Arik at the time. My father was like, "Oh my goodness, how will he buy you Arik?"
You say, Daddy, no, leave him.
What did you say? Yeah.
I said, no, Daddy, that's what we can afford now. We go. The aeroplane will fly, it will come back.
Oh, this is the reality.
Yes, at the time, even though he was trying to step back now that I'm no longer responsible for you, but he couldn't really do much because how I can't even
my daughter is
think about it. Like, how would you put my child in Arik? But I'm like, I'm not somebody's wife, unfortunately. So those are the kind of things that we both of us together we grew together. And at the time when I was starting my business, because he was even the one that advised me to start, because I wasn't going to start. I wanted to be a corporate lady. I have 2 degrees in mathematics, so so
mathematics.
Yes,
like
I know.
math.
Don't worry, everybody is always surprised. Like, so my first degree, industrial mathematics, and then my second degree, financial mathematics and computation.
That's beautiful.
So I wanted to work in like a financial institution, or consulting firm, that kind of, and then climb the corporate ladder. So we got married, and we lit up our space, and it was beautiful. Everyone that came in would always love the
so
yes.
Kind
said, why don't you just start this as a business? I'm like, me, I cannot do business. So the way I'm like, the way I'm wired,
math person.
That's not math person. The way I am like this, I'm very nice, calm. I don't want wahala. Business seems like it's a battle. Especially
in Nigeria.
Exactly. And they owe me money. I don't know how to ask drag them for money and all that. But I say, you know what? What's the worst that can happen? Just start. Maybe 6 months, 1 year. And if you think there is something that you really cannot do, at least that you've tried and you can drop it. I think that was the biggest scam of all, because 9 years after
you are still on it.
And it's thriving, actually. I have legit seen your designs. Oh my God. You guys go and check out. And every time I see your designs, I'm like, Lord, give me billions so that I can get Morenike to come and design my place.
Somebody was asking me the other, yesterday, can you transform this building? I said, what we cannot transform does not exist. Just
nice.
don't worry, just call us. Do you understand? So and then we did that. Even with that as well, my husband was like, I know that, if you wanted to go to an interior design school, you would want to go to one of the best.
Yes.
But at the moment, we cannot afford it. So what we can afford is, I will buy data in the house. Just be teaching, watching YouTube. Wow. So for 2 years, I self-taught myself. Exactly.
For 2 years?
For 2 years. I was very consistent. If anything, if anyone knows anything about me, when I want to do something, I'm very consistent. So even though I wasn't monitored by anyone, I didn't have lecturers like
so
that.
You were self-motivated.
I'm very disciplined. I would go to work, come back, do everything I have to do. By 10 p.m. I sleep till 2 a.m. By 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. every single day.
Yeah.
Wow.
For 2 years, I did that. So some of the things that I know in my head, not like maybe I went to school for it.
In terms of like intimacy and transparency, how much transparency do you think is needed in marriage? In like, do you tell them everything? Like with your spouse, is it like 100% openness, or do you feel like as a woman, there's some things that you should keep to yourself?
So for me, I feel like when you're now holding back anything, like, I don't want to be married to somebody I cannot share 100% because it's like we're going to be living as long as Jesus
forever,
for life, 80 years.
You don't want to be life imprisonment. Honestly, this is not life imprisonment.
I want to be free. I want to be free. Yes, I understand that some people, the other party might not be mature enough to receive the information or use it, or they can use it against you.
Oh, yes, some men do that.
So I think that it just depends on
who you're married to.
Who you're married to. For example, my husband, I tell him any and everything. In fact, sometimes almost like I am telling too much, and he's also telling me because he doesn't. My own is mostly good because I have lots of friends. My husband doesn't have friends,
so you are
so I'm
true friend.
I love that. Isn't that nice?
I'm the best. We've been married 11 years. I can tell you that maybe I don't think anyone has come to knock on our door to say they're coming to look for my husband.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The only times that his friends have come, they've like come together, maybe like 4 or 5 people, and maybe because they have been hosting, so it's like. It's your turn back.
We need to hang out.
Okay. And at the end of the day, I'm the one that would eventually do the hosting and make everybody feel comfortable. So he's that kind of person. So he doesn't even have any other choice. He has to pour it on me, right? Yeah. So I would say that. However, there are some peculiar cases where, because I've heard of couples where you tell someone, oh, this is how much I'm earning.
Yes.
Because the person is lazy, or somehow the person is expecting you to even give them your money at the end of the month. In fact, I've heard of situations where you say, I don't have money, so you give me. The person is
because they know how much you're earning.
Yes.
And so that
and all that. And if they can even go and take loan on that person's head.
Yes.
Knowing that my wife is going to
put
the person exactly.
So be careful, though. We need to be guided.
I think that. To that your question, sometimes if you know your spouse well enough, you know the information you can actually divulge, because some information can just put you in trouble.
No, because it's good to be transparent, but then you don't want to go in blindly and then say, because I want to be 100%. They said we should be 100%. Please, I think that the goal of marriage, or even what God intended for marriage, is that your husband is actually your best friend. Yes, it should be 100%.
You should be able to share any and everything with him. There's this funny thing on TikTok where one woman says, if you tell me a secret and you say you should not tell anyone, then she comes out her husband that there's somebody that knows all of the secrets, because that's really how it should be in marriage. I don't even think I'm the best with secrets. If you tell me something, just use prayer to shock it. Shock it well. Because somebody else is going to hear it.
Telling you, she already have
for you to be telling me that, you know he's going to know.
Yes, I think even our friends know that we have
spouses
not even
just because she wants to do No. But sometimes it's maybe even
in a conversation.
Sometimes. So, for example, I have like a very close friend, not my best friend, but a very close friend that was having like some issues.
Yeah.
And when she tells me, she's even expecting that I would tell my husband so that my husband can also advise from a male perspective.
So there's that.
So there's usually that. So if I'm telling my husband something, I'm coming not from a place to come and see what has happened.
Yes.
No, it's like, what do you think? Like, how do you advise me to,
I think that sometimes when we also share with our husbands, we get a completely different perspective.
Oh yeah,
we are so emotional.
Yeah, men are
like,
so...
how dare. Then you hear from your husband,
okay.
True.
But why is it that they always tend to be on the other side? Because I'm always looking at him like, you won't just support me. Like sometimes, but that's what we need to hear, right? But sometimes, like, can you just support me? Like, but it's beautiful. Like that. I think that's what it's supposed to be. That other perspective that you think about your life.
What's the most memorable day you've had with your husband, and what's the most beautiful thing your husband has ever done for you?
This question is going to be tough.
Every day is memorable.
Love it. Which one do you want me to, talk about?
Just the one that completely blew your mind away.
Out of the beautiful one. And
is that too numerous to mention?
So numerous.
Oh my gosh,
so numerous.
Love, sweet.
It's just very sweet. Even as and again, one thing about me is that because I'm easily. I'm very easy to. In fact,
you're very content.
I love that contentment is so important.
I'm just getting that vibe, and I love it.
So it can just be that my husband goes out.
Yeah,
there's this lady that when he used to work on Marina. This woman, as in our granuts, I've never eaten that granite.
Lilian, are we about to hear what she's about to tell us? Granite.
That woman, I'm not even joking. Like, even with my husband, we're already thinking about how we can package this woman, and then
is that good?
We can be exporting her granuts. We're already thinking about business ideas. That's how good it is. So I don't digress.
Yes,
it can be so now he works in VI, not in Marina. But sometimes he would just either send somebody or go
get
himself
the
and buy that bottle of granules.
That is the thought that counts.
Exactly.
It's the thought. It's actually the thought. Yes.
It's just like, oh my goodness. Oh, thank you.
I'm glad you're speaking
But it's even the thought. It's not about being easy to please. It's the thought. A lot of the time, it's that little thing that person does.
I'm glad you're speaking up for the ladies that don't necessarily want something
waiting for
big.
something huge.
Yeah, no, I know we talk about, I want a Rolex, I want this. But some of us just want granules. Like, seriously. Tasting granules.
I'm just like rolling their eyes like, what's granules?
I know. Because so on my birthday, it's usually hard for my husband to buy me things because he will buy me things. I'm like, oh, thank you. Yeah. But it's like, but I know you will not really even use it like that because that's the kind of person. Look at me now, like jewelry, nothing, It's not like I cannot buy these things, but it's just
not what you.
It's not really. So for me, it's just like quality time and just being thoughtful, like so many thoughtful things. And I would say maybe when we had our children, let me not lie, it's not really that. I was in severe pain.
Let me know you
trust that children thing.
It adds
let's not sugarcoat
that one. But I would just say, sharing our wins, together. Maybe we had been trusting God for something.
And then finally happened. So it's almost like my person had this. Yes.
So I remember when my husband was changing jobs, and when they had given him his package and all that, I told him, no, you're going to go back and renegotiate and tell them to add so X amount of money on top of it. He was like, Rennie, they already pay me times 3 already of where I'm coming from. That it's not going to be too. I said no, just add, And then he went back and they're like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I understand, but if we give you this package, you would then be earning, more than the person that is above you. Yeah. So can we maybe divert it into like different other things? And maybe they just remove like maybe 1 or 2 M or something. But then he came back home and we were so excited. I've also like things like that where both of us we share in our wins.
I think that for a lot of couples and maybe mothers especially, there's this the talk of when children come in, women tend to now focus on their children and abandon their husbands. And some men, rather than let their wives know that, I feel like you are neglecting me because there are children in the picture, they'd rather not say anything, And then the woman is like, I'm doing all I can to keep this family together because we have children. I'm the one doing all the work. But the men are not necessarily like voicing it out and say, oh, this is how I feel. And then gradually there's like a breakdown in communication. Now I've heard that having children is one of the things that actually makes communication harder in marriage. When you started having children, you're talking about intentionality now. So I'm like, when you start having children, were you also now intentional about even making sure that your husband was still number one? A lot of time the husbands now become number 4, depending on how many children you have.
And was he also intentional making sure that you're still number one?
Even though you did all the pregnancy and delivering and all of that.
So this question is so interesting because even up till now, my husband is closer to my husband. My husband is closer to our children than I am to our children.
So sounds like my destiny. How did you manage? How are you managing it?
That's what I'm telling you now. It's him that is doing the work.
The work, okay.
Yeah, not like maybe it just happened by chance.
Okay.
It's one that is me. Are you okay? Are you all right?
Let's go.
That's me. That's
so
me.
I remember, again, like I said, from the onset of intention, my husband also read books, and some of these things he had read it as well. So when we had our baby, I remember that was the same time I was starting my business. So my baby was like maybe 3-4 months, and then I would go to work Monday to Friday, and then I have to like do my business. I will not call it hustle, but no, business, like go to market, source for things and all that on Saturday and Sunday. My husband was the one that will be with the baby, feed her, change her, do all of that, So I think that was like shared responsibility. So nobody ever felt, so I didn't feel like, oh, all the weight was on my head and my husband was just somewhere crossing his legs, reading newspaper and all that. He was invested. And I remember that the first few years of our marriage, we had said that we didn't want any help. We just wanted to be by ourselves. We didn't want like any external person coming in.
Wait, so did you do that?
Yeah. So it meant that as we are putting these rules, we need to also know. Sacrifice. Yes. So my husband and I would do chores together. The Saturdays, he's either saying, okay, I'm washing the plates. Maybe you can lay bed, you can sweep. Both of us will sweep, we'll mop together. We shall share everything together so that I didn't feel the burden, overwhelmed and all that.
I think what role has like love languages sort of played? Are your husband and your love languages, are they the same? Are they similar? How do you guys communicate love in your relationship?
So it's part of my love language. Act
of service.
Just granuts.
Granuts.
All of kuli or something.
In fact, just tell me that we don't need to wash plate. Just sit down on the bed. That is my own love language is laziness, but
just take care of me.
Just take care of me.
That's nice. Just care for me.
Exactly.
Just I come
Just soft life.
Soft life. That's it. Hashtag soft life.
If you can help me,
but I'm not saying that I'm lazy. I know.
No, of course not. Of course
not.
Right. So I understand, but our love languages are not the same. That's why I said that we read the book because if I had not read that book, I would have just thought that I wouldn't know how to communicate or maybe receive love or ask for or give and all that. So, and what happens usually is even if you do not know the different love language, you would be expecting that how you receive love is the way
he would give it.
And then so imagine that you like giving collecting gifts, and then you think that's, and the person does not really like gifts, and you're giving the person gifts, and it's almost like that's my husband. If he buys me gifts, not really. That's not my love language. So, so we understood that
from the early on,
so that we've been able to. Sometimes I forget to, but then I have to remind myself what it is.
I think also you talked about being content. That I feel like that's really the message today. Even if your husband is not driving the best of cars now, even if he does not have money to put in your account now, just being content. Sometimes that's all the motivation your husband needs to actually go out there and keep working hard till he gives you the best life. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you so much.
Our regards to your husband.
Yes.
And tell Mr. Mo that God bless him.
Yes,
God bless
for being a model man. And God bless your home.
And God bless our
Many more
husbands
good
too.
news.
God bless your husbands too.
God bless us too.
They're watching it. They're like,
God bless our homes and your homes as
Don't put my husband in trouble, please.
Thank you so much, Morenike.
I trust you guys have enjoyed this episode.
Yes.
Make sure to like,
comment,
subscribe, comment. Let us know, how are you managing?
What
is your love
marriage
language? How do you manage communication, intimacy, transparency? Do you relate to anything we've talked about? Let us know.
And is contentment an issue for you in your marriage? I really would want to know about that. Is contentment an issue? And having listened to what Morenike has said today, are you willing to actually learn to be content now and pray that God helps you as you stay content in whatever situation you are in your marriage now?
I think it's such an interesting thing, and you can leave your comments in the below, because some women might be like, oh, if I'm content, then I'm not going to push him to do what he needs to do. So know the person you're with. Don't be content in a not so good situation,
so that you don't remain there for life.
So be content when someone is putting in the effort to get you to a better place. That's the only time you should be content. But if he's not doing anything, you of course encourage him, because that's what we're supposed to do as well. So we'll see you in the next episode. Follow us on social media. And catch you next episode.
Lilian, before we go, Morenike needs to, work on our affirmation.
Okay. So it says, remain strong when things go wrong.
Wow. We just talked about
contentment.
Wow. Remain strong when things go wrong. So I usually say that, sometimes not really about what you're going through. It's how you respond.
Your perspective.
Yes, perspective, right? So because you can either be strong or not be strong. Well, what are the advantages if you're not being strong? So I would choose being strong.
I'd
rather be strong.
So we're going to be moving on to our girl chat segment, which is where you lovely viewers send us your questions, and we're going to answer them and get some feedback back to you. So we have Benita. What do we have today? What did I love?
This one says, I am a young woman who has been married for 4 years. I have been a stay-at-home mom for the entirety of our marriage due to health complications from childbirth. My husband has been my rock and has been very patient and diligent in supporting us financially. It's been a few months now since I got cleared by the doctor and shortly started applying for jobs. I recently landed an interview with a top company and immediately ran to share the great news with my husband, but was met with anger. He couldn't believe I made the decision to start working on my own and even applied for jobs without gaining his consent. And he has said I can't go for the interview. Was I wrong for this? Considering I was doing this to take some financial burden off him. Can I go for the interview even with his disapproval?
This is a very
alarms going off like
So I mean, like this is a tough one. The tough one. But I think that at the end of the day, right, it speaks to the foundation of this marriage. So first off, from what I'm reading, the husband was not even aware that she was looking, and he might have interpreted it as, I'm not providing enough. So why are you going? Like, I thought we were fine, especially because she has said my husband has been my rock and has been patient, and yes, exactly. And I also want to, look at it from her side as well as, she just wanted to surprise her husband.
Like marriage, relationships. You're trying to do the right thing.
Exactly. And so that's why there are lots of, in marriage, is assumptions.
Yes, and
I think, they're very dangerous. In fact, I always say it at my workplace, I'm always shouting, please don't assume anything. Just if you have to ask question and to make you feel stupid, please just ask. It's better than for you to assume, do something, and then at the end of the day, it was problem, right? So I think from the onset, so it's also possible that maybe they had not had some certain discussions. You know how during courting or dating, they're always telling you, ask the important questions. Don't be asking things like, have you eaten today? Are you all right?
What did you have for dinner?
My life. What are you for dinner? Okay, now hang up. Oh no, you hang up.
Sweet that. You hang up.
I'm waiting for you.
Okay, I'll wait for you to sleep off on the phone and all that. It's okay. It's all right, very cute, but in real life it doesn't really happen like that.
It does not apply.
Yeah. So questions like that, maybe if they are asked, right? Maybe the man said, he's kind of man that traditional
actually
man
would rather provide.
He does not want his wife to work. Because I feel like it's now they're not on the same page, when it comes to working.
Alrighty, we'll see you on the next episode. Make sure you share, okay? Make sure you share. See you later.
Bye guys.